The success story of Bernard Arnault. Bernard Arnault is a French billionaire businessman, president, and CEO of the Louis Vuitton Moët Hennessy Group of companies. Grand Officer of the Legion of Honor since July 14, 2011. On June 18, 2021, Bernard Arnault's fortune increased by $1.4 billion in a day and amounted to $200.4 billion. Arnault became the second person whose fortune exceeded $200 billion. The first was Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. As of July 2022, Bernard Arnault's fortune is estimated at $190.3 billion. He ranks third in the list of the richest people in the world according to Forbes. As of December 2022, Bernard Arnault became the richest man in the world and his fortune is estimated at $211 billion. As of February 28, 2023, the fortune of Bernard Arnault and his family was estimated at $206.3 billion. Bernard Jean-Étienne Arnault was born on March 5, 1949 in the north of France in the provincial town of Roubaix, located on the border with Belgium, less than 10 kilometers from it. The hometown of the future billionaire has long been famous as a center of weaving and spinning. It's funny, but true, it is the textile company that will later become the first brick in the foundation of the fashion empire of Bernard Arnault. Bernard's father, Jean Arnault, had an engineering education. His mother, Marie-Joseph Savinel, was a pianist. Bernard had a younger sister, Dominique. The Arnault family was wealthy, owning the construction company Ferret Savinel, founded in 1926 by Bernard's maternal grandfather Etienne Savinel. Since 1950, the family firm was headed by Jean Arnault. The billionaire recalls his childhood as pleasant. "I grew up in the north of France, and I had a very pleasant childhood at a time when my family owned the company." Mamonette's maternal grandmother took part in the upbringing of Arnault Jr. She raised her grandson, according to him, in the style of strict Catholicism. From her, Bernard learned to be economical. The boy took piano lessons, showed good results, but in order to make a career as a professional musician, "You have to be super gifted, but I wasn't like that," Arnault admits. Little is known about Bernard's school years. He attended preparatory classes at the Lycée Faidherbe in the city of Lille, after which he was going to enter the prestigious Parisian educational institution for engineers, the Polytechnic School, but broke his arm. Arnault was physically unable to take the entrance tests, and although he was offered a place at another metropolitan educational institution at the École des Mines, he decided to wait, and entered the Polytechnic School the following year, in 1969. Working for Ferret Savinel. In 1971, the young man received an engineering degree and joined the family business. In 1974, Bernard became director of construction at Ferret Savinel, and in 1977, general manager. As the head of the enterprise, Bernard showed purposefulness and secrecy. So, in secret from Arnault Sr., he began negotiations on the sale of the construction direction Ferret Savinel to the National Construction Company of the Rothschilds. Bernard consulted his father about the sale, but already at the stage when a deal worth 40 million francs was discussed with the buyer. The sale of the company's construction activities and the establishment of the development company Farinel, specializing in country houses, paid off. The new company in 5 years becomes one of the best in France in its market segment. Just as secretive as in business, Bernard Arnault showed himself in his personal life. In 1973, he married, but did not wear engagement rings, and kept this significant event a secret from the company's employees. His chosen one, Anna de Vavrin, came from a well-known family in Roubaix, which was engaged in the textile industry. When the couple had a daughter in 1975, even Bernard Arnault's secretary didn't know. 2 years later, the couple has a daughter. Trip to the USA. In 1981, the socialist François Mitterrand became president in France, who launched a program for the nationalization of banks and major industries. His socialist economy makes bourgeois like Bernard Arnault nervous, so he decides to move to the U.S. Bernard Arnault was not a typical refugee, without knowledge of the language and money. He immigrated to the States with his wife, young children and capital, for which he bought a wonderful Mediterranean-style mansion in New Rochelle overlooking Long Island Sound. In America, he registered the company Farinell Incorporated and continued to run the real estate business. In 1984, when the influence of the socialists on the French economy weakened, Arnault returned to his homeland. It is not known whether he learned to run an American business in 3 years aggressively and dynamically, but in the best traditions of storytelling techniques. Bernard Arnault does not create new trademarks, he buys them and gives them a new life, for which he received the nicknames Lord of Logos and Lord of Brands. However, at the same time, he does not disdain methods. All means are good in war. Therefore, he is also known as the corporate raider and the wolf in Kashmir. Arnault is adept at expelling company founders or taking advantage of disagreements between business partners. Johann Rupert, founder of the Swiss luxury goods company Richemont, said of a competitor, "I can't be as tough, but he's a good financier and has been successful, so you have to give him credit." Best-selling author of the Deluxe, How Luxury Lost Its Shine, Dana Thomas notes, Arnault is like a cuckoo, coming and occupying other people's nests, not making his own. Arnault is attracted by the spirit of corporate rivalry. "I remember people telling me not to combine so many brands, and that was the success," says the billionaire. "We, LVMH, are still small. We are just getting started." Another quote from him. Consider some of the most absorptions of Bernard Arnault. The very first, Christian Dior. In 1984, after returning from the U.S. to France, Bernard Arnault was looking for where to invest. At this time, the Boussac textile conglomerate, which is on the verge of bankruptcy, was put up for sale. How did he attract a 35-year-old businessman? Boussac, whose shareholders were private individuals, and the French government, owned one of the country's treasures, the Christian Dior brand. "At that moment, I felt that I was on the threshold of something grandiose," the French businessman admits. And although Bernard did not understand at all the direction that he wanted to buy, his father, at his request, got books on the production of textiles. He managed to negotiate with the government, promising not to cut jobs, and with the venture capital company Lazard Frères, which contributed €80 million. Having spent most of the family fortune, $15 million, Bernard Arnault acquired Boussac. After the deal, he restructured, laying off over 5,000 workers and selling off the company's main assets, leaving only Christian Dior and Le Bon Marché, a large department store in the central district of Paris. "Bernard Arnault is a predator, not a creator," says a banker close to the Boussac deal. Christian Dior became the first luxury brand in Arnault's investment portfolio and served as the foundation for building a fashion empire. Best value, Louis Vuitton. In 1988, Arnault acquires a 25% stake in Louis Vuitton Mode Hennessy, a conglomerate formed in 1987 from the merger of French fashion house Louis Vuitton and French wine and spirits producers Mode Hennessy. Taking advantage of a disagreement between Alain Chevalier and Henri Racamire, the conglomerate's two co-presidents, Bernard Arnault successfully staged a takeover of the group and in 1989 became chairman and CEO of LVMH. "When I bought Louis Vuitton," the billionaire recalls, "everyone was like, the company is already so big, what else can you do with it?" Louis Vuitton is now referred to as the ATM of the LVMH group, and this brand accounts for the largest sales volume in the group, almost a quarter, 23% in 2018. Worst, House of Gucci. In 2001, Arnault failed to take over Gucci. He lost to French entrepreneur François Pinault, who bought a 40% stake in the Italian fashion house. Mr. Pinault is the antipode of business. Bernard Arnault comes from a peasant family, did not even receive a secondary education. Although Arnault claims that he did not try to make this deal, Pinault is proud of his victory over the bourgeois Arnault. Biggest, Tiffany. In the early 90s, the billionaire made about 10 major acquisitions. He bought Givenchy, Marc Jacobs, Guerlain, Tag Heuer. But they weren't Arnault's biggest deal. In 2019, LVMH filed a bid to acquire the 182-year-old legendary jewelry house Tiffany. In November 2019, when the purchase amount was raised from $14.5 billion to $16.2 billion, Tiffany and Company passed under the control of the LVMH holding. Arnault emphasizes that preserving the uniqueness of each brand is a paramount task for LVMH. On the company's website, you can find a complete list of the group's trademarks, the profit from which the holding prefers to form by divisions rather than by individual brands. Arnault emphasizes that preserving the uniqueness of each brand is a paramount task for LVMH. On the company's website, you can find a complete list of the group's trademarks, the profit from which the holding prefers to form by divisions rather than by individual brands. Family dynasty. Bernard Arnault and his family own 47.2% of the shares of LVMH, while Arnault Family Group has 63.3% of the voting power when making decisions. The billionaire is convinced that the control of his close-knit family will provide LVMH with advantages in the future. The family business will not fall into the wrong hands. 4 out of 5 of his children work in the company. Bernard's sister Dominique, married Vadon Arnault, headed the Fred jewelry store until her death in 2006. Delphine's daughter is the executive vice president of Louis Vuitton, a member of the LVMH executive committee. Son Antoine is the CEO of Berluti, chairman of the board of directors of L'Europeana. Alexander is the head of the German brand Rimmel. Frederick manages the technology department of the leading watch brand Tag Heuer. The youngest heir of Arnault, Jean, is still a student. The children of Bernard Arnault often gather for a family dinner with their parents, spend part of the summer together in the resort of Saint-Tropez. While the family idol is not disturbed by the question of journalists, who will lead the empire after Arnault, the heirs of the billionaire repeat with one voice, "Our father is very young. He will work for another 30 years. I don't think he will ever stop. This is not the topic that we think about." Bernard Arnault himself claims that he is not going to stop. "Our father is very competitive," he says. "He doesn't like to lose." Charity. Bernard Arnault is a famous patron of sciences and arts. In 2006, he initiated the creation of the Louis Vuitton Foundation, which sponsors art, culture, and heritage. For the foundation, in the middle of the Bois de Boulogne in Paris, a museum building, Foundation Louis Vuitton Museum, was built, which opened in 2014. The project of the building, whose 12 convex panels resemble sails filled with a breeze, was developed by architect Frank Gehry. Gehry flatteringly characterized Arnault. "Never in my life have I met a businessman so devoted to art." The museum has become a modern cultural center, which presents the personal collection of Bernard Arnault and the Foundation's art collection, about 2,500 works in total. $135 million was spent on its construction. This is not the first construction that Bernard Arnault personally supervises. Earlier in 1999, the LVMH Tower, the company's U.S. headquarters, was opened. The skyscraper, which creates the geometry of a woman's skirt falling on a bent knee, received the title of the best new building in New York. From the Wall Street Journal. In 2019, The philanthropist's family and his conglomerate LVMH provided $224 million to restore the fire-damaged Notre Dame Cathedral. Secrets of his success. What is the secret of Bernard Arnault's success? In his interviews, the billionaire shares tips. Take action. Let's remember the lesson that Bernard Arnault learned from life in America. When something needs to be done, do it. Maintain discipline and balance. He is called a marketer with the gift of an artist. In order to be successful, you need to have two absolutely opposite skills: the vision of an artist and an understanding of the logic of marketing. Arnault admits in an interview with Forbes, "Every single day I deal with artistic natures, but the success lies in the fact that we are able to communicate with creative people." According to Arnault, the main thing in the organization is balance, in which the creative and commercial sides should be balanced. It informs creative directors which markets to strengthen, sets the overall direction for designers, and then employees are free to make their own decisions. Discipline reigns in his conglomerate. If someone does not cope with the work, then for a long time he will not be late. In 1997, the billionaire terminated the contract with designer Gianfranco Ferré, who ceased to meet the requirements of Arnault. And after all, he, working at Dior since 1989, literally resurrected the brand. John Galliano, who was hired to replace Ferré, breathed new life into Dior, but in 2011, accused of anti-Semitism for his statements, he was also fired. Pay attention to details. Bernard Arnault is known for his attention to detail. He knows and remembers everything, even how many handbags have been sold, said Claude Pompidou, the widow of the ex-president of France and a longtime friend of Arnault. Once in Seoul, Arnault went to a local Tiffany boutique. It happened a month before the purchase of Tiffany, and in one of the windows he found a container of cleaning agent forgotten by the employees. Bernard Arnault took a photo and sent it to his Parisian colleagues with the comment, "There is something to work on." Work with passion. The phrase, passion for creativity, is an important part of Arnault's corporate culture. Yves Massarovica's book about Bernard Arnault, published in 2001, is called Creative Passion. It is not enough to have a talented designer. Management must be inspired too, says LVMH Group owner. Although Arnault did not invent new brands, but only bought them, he gave them a new life and was very successful in this business. A businessman is reproached for making money on human vanity, but the same can be said about Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, who have produced and continue to produce a stylish and sought-after product. Bernard Arnault is sure that he sells customers not only products, but also emotions. We create desires and happiness. This is our business. Most of LVMH's buyers are hard-working people who want to indulge in a little something from time to time. And the salesman of happiness. Bernard Arnault makes every effort to constantly impress customers. We must create exceptional products for them that will make them say, "Wow, I really want it." What do you think of Bernard Arnault? Write your opinion in the comments. Subscribe to my channel, where you will learn a lot of interesting things. Put a bell and be the first to know about new releases.